Good morning, everyone, and thanks, Jim, for the introduction. This morning, I'm going to talk to you about 10 practical steps to make your company ready for Brexit. But before I launch into those 10 steps, I want to point out that there isn't a single formula or a single template that is applicable in all cases in terms of your response to Brexit. I also want to say that the guidelines I'm going to give are general, and when you look at specific companies, you may have to tailor them to your specific requirements. But before I start on the 10 steps, I want to give a little bit of background. Clarity was brought by the phrase, Brexit means Brexit. That made it all very clear to us all. The nature of the future trading relationships between the EU and the UK are very clear. And they're not the subject of ever-changing and contradictory debate. And recently, political leaders in the UK asked business people to speak out. Some did last week, Airbus and BMW. And you will have read and seen the reaction they got. In addition, last week, the 5 main business lobby groups in the UK expressed deep concern that time is running out, and in the absence of clarity, business will have to implement plans for a worst-case scenario. So Brexit means nothing. The Minister has already said this morning, and I would agree, Brexit is extremely complicated. From day one, there has been uncertainty. Unfortunately, that uncertainty continues. It means that you, as business owners and operators, are operating in an environment with imperfect information, and you have to make crucial decisions about the future of your business. Some businesses are very well resourced and have conducted detailed planning. They're mainly the larger corporates and multinational businesses that have resources both in terms of people and funding to enable them to do that. Unfortunately, in the case of the majority of businesses, there has been either little or, I'm sorry to say, no planning. And just before I turn to the 10 steps, I want to give you 3 pitfalls. The first pitfall is a wait-and-see attitude. Many people are adopting this. I would say, despite the uncertainty and despite the imperfect information, wait and see is not a strategy that I would recommend. I would strongly recommend that if you haven't done so already, you should act now and assess the impact of Brexit on your business. The second pitfall is to use historical data based on existing trading relationships. Brexit changes permanently the relationship between the UK and the EU. And it is a generational thing, it is not a short-term measure. And therefore, when you're assessing the future, you must assess it in that context. The third pitfall is not considering the full implications of Brexit. To many people, it's about customs and tariffs and potential costs. It goes way beyond that. And there's hardly a debate that takes place on Brexit that there isn't some other factors that are thrown up. So in summary, Brexit brings unprecedented social, political, economic, and commercial challenges. There is no way of getting around that. The real danger, of course, is that we all suffer from Brexit fatigue before it actually happens, because it hasn't happened yet. I strongly advise you to avoid that. Now, with that very upbeat introduction, what can you do about it? The first thing is you've got to be informed about Brexit. And believe me, there is a lot of information. There's a lot of free information. Information is available online. It's even available in terms of sectors. If you go looking for it, I can assure you there's no shortage of information. Attendance at a summit like this is a very good start. And it's not just the formal sessions, but if you have a burning question, you can ask it informally. And there's lots of people here who can address it. And indeed, Bord Iascaigh themselves commissioned a study which Deloitte undertook in 2017 on the potential impacts and opportunities of the Irish seafood sector arising out of Brexit. The second step, I would say, is activate a Brexit task force. This is a team that should be responsible for preparing your business's response to Brexit. It is important that all functions are considered and a thorough analysis of the potential impact of Brexit is carried out. And this will include looking at supply chain, procurement, sales, marketing, finance, among others. I accept that there may be small businesses in the audience today, and you might say, well, that's a pretty grandiose term, a Brexit task force. And I accept that responsibility may rest with an individual in a smaller business, but I will touch on the advantages of sectoral groups shortly. The third thing is to provide clear communications, both internally and externally. And in some respects, I would say the internal communication is the most important. You got to remember that if you're concerned about how Brexit impacts your business, the likelihood is your employees are concerned about their very future. So it is really important that you keep them up to date. The fourth thing I would say is be informed about government initiatives. And indeed, the Minister himself this morning spoke about initiatives that are available. Make sure you're aware. And it's not just the government itself, but it's the government agencies. And indeed, Jim talked about BIM's role in all of this. And you should look for that support, seek it out. It is there. It is really important to understand how exposed your business is. There are general issues that will apply to all business, but there are also issues which are specific to sectors, and even within sectors, there's issues specific to companies operating within those sectors. And I will now share with you some observations from a study which Deloitte conducted for the Department of Business, Enterprise and Innovation on the impact of Brexit across a number of business sectors. The results of the study were obtained by means of a survey, and the survey was of 179 companies across 15 different sectors. By definition, therefore, many of the questions were generic. And firms were requested to assess the potential impact of Brexit on their business under 20 impact assessment factors. I don't think it'll be of any surprise to you to learn, and as I say, you got to accept that the terminology was somewhat generic. But the three most important factors in the seafood sector were the imposition of trade tariffs, the re-establishment of a physical border with the UK, and the absence of a customs union. Back to the access and quota issues that Sean was talking about earlier this morning. Outside the specific questions, people were given an opportunity to comment. And in the seafood sector, some of the concerns were competing with UK firms for access to European and Asian markets, and the fact that the UK leaving the EU could have a negative impact on the ease of doing business. Step number 6, form sectoral groups. I did say that earlier that when I talked about a Brexit task force, that could be a grandiose term for a a small business, but sectoral groups are relevant no matter what size your business is. It enables you to pool resources, to conduct research and tackle the issues. And in my experience, companies are very willing to talk and share their views about the impact that Brexit may have. You then need to conduct scenario impact assessments. What impact will different scenarios have on your business? And each scenario needs to be assessed not just on the direct impact of your business, but on the timing, because not all change will happen immediately. It may happen over a period of time, but that change will be permanent. Then getting into a little bit more detail, you need to model and quantify what impact this might have on your sales and what impact it might have on your costs. Different Brexit scenarios will give rise to different costs. And the more sophisticated the business, the more sophisticated that model needs to be. And beware of the additional hidden costs, because Brexit is likely to bring more administration and there will be costs associated with that. Evaluate your value proposition. Before making any decisions, you need to consider how you can maintain or indeed enhance value, because there will be disruption associated with Brexit. It's unavoidable and it's permanent. Earlier on, there were discussions on innovation. We are going to have to come up with innovative solutions. What happened in the past will not work in the future. And finally, and to end on a somewhat positive note, you've got to identify new opportunities. I started off by saying you need to plan. And if you have a plan, not only are you better placed to tackle the challenges that you face with Brexit, but you're much better placed to identify the opportunities. And in my experience in business, and I know it's an old cliche, but someone's challenge is someone else's opportunity. So you can spend time getting concerned about the challenges. The issue is to do something about them and make sure you identify opportunities, whether that is through innovation, whether it's through a digital strategy, whether it is through strategic alliances, joint ventures, looking at how you can mold your business to take account of the challenges that you'll face. And in that note, you should remember that the seafood sector offers potential for expansion as the global demand for seafood increases. Consumption in the next 10 years is estimated by the Food and Agriculture Organization to grow significantly. So you're not without opportunities. I have tried to outline 10 steps here to make your business Brexit ready. If you have implemented some or all of these, you're well on the way. And in summary, the time is to plan now. You should seek to mitigate the challenges of Brexit, because Brexit will bring challenges to your business. And at the same time, you've got to stay alert to the opportunities. And we have a Brexit lab which helps people go through all of that. In fact, it's you doing the work, not us doing the work, because it is only when you actually sit down and really consider what the implications are that you can come up with the solutions. I do recognize it's a challenge, and I wish you well in your endeavours. Thank you.